ओके सो आज का जो टॉपिक है इट्स अफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग. That was also my PhD topic a long time ago, and this is an area most of my research in the past few years before coming to LUMS was in the area of effective computing. Most of my research, and this is also the most related lecture to HCI. If there is one lecture which I think is the most relevant and most related, it is actually effective computing in terms of applied nature of this topic. So आज के लेक्चर में I'll be talking about effective computing किस चीज़ का नाम है, उसमें कौन कौन से application areas हैं, उसका overall structure क्या होता है, and then more importantly किन किन applications में दुनिया में इस वक्त इस्तेमाल हो रही है, and how does it relate to the research we're actually doing in computer science department here at LUMS, but also जो डॉक्टर बसमा का जो काम मेरे साथ, डॉक्टर नासिर के साथ जो हमारा बहुत एक्टिव काम है ऑन वेल बीइंग एंड इफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग के ऊपर, आई विल आल्सो टॉक अबाउट दैट, जो हम मेजर रिसर्च प्रोजेक्ट्स कर रहे हैं. सो दिस आल्सो देन मेक्स इट वेरी रेलेवेंट टू द वर्क वी डूइंग राइट नाउ इन द लैब. सो द कॉन्सेप्ट ऑफ इफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग ये जो शुरू में आया था, द फर्स्ट वाज proposed more than 2 decades ago. I think अगर आप इसको देखें तो जो इमोशनल कंप्यूटिंग है या रोल ऑफ इमोशंस इन कंप्यूटिंग हैव बीन इन डिस्कशन फॉर अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम, बोथ फ्रॉम अ कॉग्निटिव साइंस पर्सपेक्टिव एज वेल एज इमोशनल कंप्यूटिंग पर्सपेक्टिव. लेकिन ये जो टर्म आई थी, ये रोजलिन पिकार्ड ने 1995 के अंदर इसको कॉइन किया था, एंड देन शी हैज आल्सो अ वेरी गुड बुक. आई थिंक द फर्स्ट ऑफ द बुक ऑन दिस टॉपिक वाज इन बाय इफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग बाय रोजलिन पिकार्ड in 2000 also. And the way she talked about computing that relates to, arises from or influences emotions. It's all about emotion. आपकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग क्या है इमोशन की, और आप उसे कैसे परसीव कर सकते हैं, और कंप्यूटर्स उसके साथ कैसे उसको परसीव कर सकते हैं, इंटरेक्ट कर सकते हैं. दैट वाज अ मेन आइडिया ऑफ इफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग. अगर आप मॉडर्न रिसर्च को देखें, पिछले 20 साल में इस पर काफ़ी काम हुआ है. इसमें कॉन्फ्रेंसेज आ गई हैं, इसमें अब स्पेशल वर्किंग ग्रुप्स बन गए हैं. आई हैव बीन अ पार्ट ऑफ मोस्ट ऑफ दीज कॉन्फ्रेंसेज एंड वर्किंग ग्रुप्स इन द लास्ट 10-15 years, and I've seen this field evolving dramatically because of our ability to actually build devices which can monitor and measure emotions in a very systematic way and reliable fashion. So इसमें दो अप्रोचेज है आपकी. एक थ्योरी फोकस्ड अप्रोच है पर्सपेक्टिव, और एक एप्लीकेशन फोकस्ड पर्सपेक्टिव है. इस कोर्स के अंदर या आज के लेक्चर के अंदर माय फोकस वुड बी ऑन एप्लीकेशन स्पेसिफिक पर्सपेक्टिव, बट देन थ्योरी फोकस्ड पर्सपेक्टिव जो है आप काफ़ी अर्सा से सुन भी रहे हैं, चाहे वो न्यूरो साइंस का पर्सपेक्टिव हो, चाहे वो साइकोलॉजी का पर्सपेक्टिव हो, चाहे वो कंप्यूटर साइंस का पर्सपेक्टिव हो. आपने कैसे इमोशंस को या आपने कैसे अफेक्ट को अंडरस्टैंड करना है. सो अगर आप इसको देखें, थ्योरी फोकस को एमिंग एट अंडरस्टैंडिंग हाउ पीपल परसीव एंड एक्सप्रेस इमोशंस. फॉर एग्जांपल मार्सेला ने बहुत ज़बरदस्त पेपर है 2010 का प्रोजेक्ट भी है, रिव्यूड कंप्यूटेशनल मॉडल्स ऑफ इमोशंस एंड हाउ सच मॉडल्स कैन बी यूज टू टेस्ट कॉग्निटिव साइंस थ्योरी टू इम्प्लीमेंट आर्टिफिशियल इमोशंस इंटेलिजेंट एजेंट्स. बहुत ज़बरदस्त काम है जिसमें कॉग्निटिव साइंस के ऊपर काम की है, बट दैट्स नॉट रियली द फोकस फॉर रेस्ट ऑफ द लेक्चर. Our application-focused perspectives talk about aiming at designing intelligent systems that are capable of understanding, influencing people's behavior and or mental states. So a computing system जो कि सोच सकता है या एक जान सकता है कि इस वक्त आप कैसे फील कर रहे हैं. That's the primary objective of effective computing in this context. इसके अंदर there are a lot of machine learning approaches to automatic emotion recognition, on expressive emotion displays, and human-robot interaction, computer interaction, and many other aspects of social communication I'll talk about in the rest of the lecture. Before I go deep into that, this is a paper from Bird et al. 2018. It's not an old paper. You can only see 4 years ago, where they had data-driven automatic emotion recognition models to achieve human-level performance, especially for facial expression-based analysis. And look at this table. इसमें हो क्या रहा है? The table shows that automatic emotion recognition achieve higher accuracy than human performance for audio-based and audio-visual emotion recognition, but not for visual-based emotion recognition. Who can help me in decoding this table? What is happening here? And why do you think we got these results? So this is one of the good systems out there where you feed to the system a stimuli कि आपने देखना ये है कि बंदा कोई हंस रहा है या रो रहा है या परेशान है. वो बहुत ऑडियो डेटा है and actually audio visual डेटा है. ऑडियो के अंदर humans are at 40.9%, machine is 41.5%, विजुअल के अंदर 52.8% ह्यूमंस हैं, मशीन इज़ 52.5%, And then when you combine that, what we call multi-modal interfaces, where audio and visual come together, so that's where machine is doing a little better than humans. How would you explain that? We have been talking about this bandwidth, visual bandwidth and audio bandwidth and all these things a lot. Jeeman, Faraz, and then I come to you.
Maybe because the machine is not performing that well in visual data, is because visual data is mostly very contextual.
Okay.
Depends on the person, also depends on the social cultural background of the person. Maybe that.
So the cultural element might have come into play, let's say. अब ये कह रहे हैं.
I would look at this more like an experimentalist point
Yeah.
of view. In audio, it's easier to characterize different frequencies, different tones, different pitches to a certain set of emotions versus the other. Versus in visual, it's just pictures, and those pictures, they have micro expressions, they have a bunch of other things that come into play that might be difficult for a machine to characterize.
Okay. In the real life, आपको ऑडियो से इमोशन आसानी से पता चलता है या विजुअल से पता चलता है? विजुअल से पता चलता है. सो सॉरी, ऑडियो से पता चलता है. ऑफ कोर्स, यू कांट ऑलवेज टेल, बट इमेजिन करें कि आपको आवाज़ सुनाई जाए किसी की और आप शक्ल देखें. सो कौन सा क्विक मोडालिटी होगी टू नो कि हाउ अ पर्सन इज़ फीलिंग? आई विल गेट बैक टू यू एक मिनट. आपका एक somebody had a point here. आपका जवाब था नहीं. You, आप बताएं.
So I think what happens with humans is that we are very face driven. We are a visual
Yeah.
species. So what we do is that even when isolated audio, we are pretty good as the machine. When we have video in front of us, we tend to ignore the audio. That's why the computer outperforms us.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have that attention
Yeah.
bandwidth problem.
Yeah. And then, but interestingly, so humans are very good at this composition, right? So आपके पास audio का feature आया, आपका visual का feature आया, and then आपने उसको multi-modal तरीके से combine किया, और आपके पास यहाँ पे accuracy 63.6 आ गई, which is really good as compared to 40% we were doing at audio के ऊपर, right? So if you, अगर आप इस number को ignore करके सिर्फ और सिर्फ ये देखें कि audio से audio visual पे jump is really amazing. And अब क्योंकि बहुत बड़ी वजह ये है कि उसमें विजुअल बैंडविड्थ ने वैल्यू ऐड कर दी है. बट लुक एट द डिफरेंस हियर. इट्स अ गुड साइन और यू थिंक कि कोई बहुत बड़ी बात नहीं है? हाउ डू यू लुक एट दिस रिजल्ट, 63.6% एंड 65%? जी.
Sir, internal bias आपको ये रोक नहीं रहा, so the machine doesn't really have the internal emotional bias that each individual might have.
Yeah.
So you are saying something and I am perceiving it according to my experience,
Sure.
and you are saying it according to your experience.
Absolutely. But look at the performance. It doesn't matter stimuli क्या थी. Human performance 63.6% पे है. How would you explain that? इससे क्या समझ आती है बात को?
I think it just speaks to the quality of the sensors.
No, human sensors.
Our eyes and our ears, maybe the computer sensors are better. It's not unheard of. We know that there's better things than our eyes and our ears.
Anybody else who would say?
So, like computers are like this, they would be functioning on the pattern recognition model. So,
Sure.
When you combine two modalities like audio and visual, you would expect the computer to do better because it's only going to have one direction to look at. And if the audio input, when it complements the visual input, if it just justifies the computer's prediction, that it's going to be able to like clean that out or clear that out more easily than a human would do it. It would just cloud there.
Okay. Ji?
So I think it also depends on the individual human's emotional intelligence as well. Like for example, this is the 63.6% is like the average I assume of like the entire set of humans.
Sure.
Tested,
Sure.
So there would be some humans over there, for example, जिनको genuinely struggle to understand when somebody else is sad, where some people might be very good at it.
Sure.
With the machine, however, you can literally teach it कि okay, इस तरह से अगर होगा तो this means कि they are sad or they are happy. And so that teaching can, although be very complex, it can sometimes perhaps be better with the machine.
So who will be quicker to learn these things, humans or machines?
That's a tough question. I guess like instinctively, obviously like humans, but I think machines could be taught better.
Machines? I'll take one more question and then I'll stop here, move on, and then come back to this at a later stage, but I'll come to you. Keep in mind, अभी हमने 1000 factors को we're not looking at that culture का factor, age का factor. What we're looking at कि आपके पास एक stimuli थी, आपने same stimuli computer को दी, same आपने human को दी, and human and computer का ये difference था, right? And then just think about this whole idea that machine is able to do this well. It's 65%. It's way above chance level. So ये तुक्का नहीं लग रहा है यहाँ पे. It's way above chance level. And I'll show you a couple of systems also later on, जहाँ पे in the case of basic emotions, you're touching 80% also. Of course, उस पे culture का component आता है. जी, somebody had a question here? Yeah.
Are machines learning on a pattern that they were taught by humans?
Of course, they're taught by, I'll show you one model also, जहाँ पे, of course, आपको there's a data which is being fed and there's a very specific data sets and there's a lot of critique on that कि वो data sets अच्छे हैं या नहीं अच्छे हैं. But the starting point was कि जब हम effective computing की बात करते हैं, we're not starting from a point कि पता नहीं ये possible है या नहीं है. This is, जी.
May I make a point here? So what is the big difference between the human labeling the emotion and the machine labeling the emotion?
Yeah, that's a good point.
What's the big difference? We've been talking about
Yeah.
this all through the course.
Course.
Interspersed. Ji, Ibrahim.
Machines have like fixed labels for emotion, while the human is like
नहीं,
This is इतना बड़ा सारा. जी, जी. No. पुत्र ऊंचा बोलो.
Because maybe have evolving patterns of understanding behavior.
Is the machine feeling what the human is feeling? The machine can label this as sadness. Is the machine feeling sad? नहीं, right? हम बार कोर्स में बता रहे हैं कि ये जो एक्सपीरियंस ऑफ वो है उसकी हमारे पास ना कोई न्यूरल कोरिलेट है ना हमारे पास उसकी कोई एक्सप्लेनेशन है. सो आप मशीन लेबल करके सैड वो उसको रिएक्ट कर सकती है जिस तरह आपने उसको कहा है, वो फील नहीं कर सकती. लेट मी नाउ पुट द क्वेश्चन अनदर वे. अगर एक कोई एंटिटी है जो कि आपको पता है कि इंसान नहीं है और वो आपको बिल्कुल उस तरह की इमोशंस दे रही है जिस तरह की कोई इंसान दे, do you actually have any way of knowing कि वो एक्सपीरियंस नहीं कर रही जो कि वो आपको पोर्ट्रे कर रही है?
There is no way.
If there's a robot that's miming human emotions perfectly, do you have any solid way of knowing whether वो feel कर रहा है कि नहीं? You guys can actually submit this बाद में. That's okay.
Think about it because I'm going to show you a video जहाँ पे exactly यही हो रहा है. जहाँ पे exactly यही हो रहा है, and then there's a very interesting concept of uncanny valley. When you make things too similar to humans, people start finding it very difficult to, relate to, and there's an element of disgust in that also. खास तौर पे robotics के अंदर. I'll go there. जी.
So is there a modality for text-based?
Yeah, of course. Text input, खास तौर पे haptic based text input जब डालते हैं, I'll talk about it also कि your mobile phones have become a great device to understand how are you feeling at that moment. And then when you're unsure कि हाँ लोगों को कैसे पता चलता है how are we feeling, आपका mobile phone sometimes know better than you how are you feeling. And that's true. जी.
I just have a question about the data that we had. So are both of them like in the same culture? Like how
Yeah, वो सबको आप imagine ना, मतलब आप कह रहा हूँ कि आपने ये शक्ल कंप्यूटर को दिखाई और यही आपको दिखाई, right?
No, but I just mean कि वो जो human है और जो machine का जो data set है, how similar are they? That's what I'm asking. Like
That's an interesting question. Let's अभी यहाँ रुक जाते हैं.
Can I
जी, जी,
answer
जी.
this? How many people here think Asian faces have no expression? Chinese, Japanese, Koreans, Han-Chinese, how many people think? तुम सबको एशियन के एक्सप्रेशंस पढ़ने आते हैं? चीनी जापानी आपके सामने खड़ा हो उसके एक्सप्रेशंस पढ़ लेते हो? So how many people think they have no expression?
आपको लगता है ना expressionless है? हाँ. No, but I did not intentionally go there because you raised a very good point and I was not going there. कि when I say कि मैंने इस emotion को देख के based on my personal experience evaluate किया, what was machine's personal experience when she or he was evaluating the system? It's a huge difference. I did not go there intentionally because that was a fundamental question you asked कि जब मैं ये कहता हूँ खुश है, what is my knowledge and how I'm being trained, what is that person's knowledge जिसने ये perform किया है. So if the data is same but it doesn't relate to who am I depending on what my history is, the answer would be very, very difficult and different. So although machine has done a very good job, but the fundamental question is on what data and how and compared to what and who.
And that equally
That's
applies
exact
to humans.
to humans, exactly. And then same conversation when we take it, we take it to culture. My, for example, PhD topic was expression of emotion in cross-cultural settings, where Pakistani kids and Dutch kids showed emotion while playing games. And we looked at their emotions and we made a system which automatically would know, okay, it's a Dutch kid or a Pakistani kid, happy or sad. And it turns out that there are itne factors hai, you would know. For example, one of the data point we had that Pakistani kids were, जो उनका expression था after winning a game, उसका कोई comparison नहीं था Dutch kid के साथ, because they were much more humble and stable and say जीत गए हैं. And Pakistani would go out of the window and then say we have won the game. And then you see culturally and then you look at कि ये क्यों होता है. And then there was all the data you have collected in group dynamics के पाकिस्तान में एक collectivistic culture कैसे आपस में बात करेगा, कैसे a formation of relationship करेगा, you will see that also happening in a human robot interaction. At a certain stage when they feel that robot is a friend, उनकी जो association है, intimacy है, they work together, is very, very different as compared to Dutch and Dutch kid and robot. They will still take a distance, they will still take some time before they build their relationship. So a lot is actually translated into machines. So human interaction is the starting point for modeling human-computer interaction for social settings. That's how we begin. Ji.
If we are able to create robots that are able to interpret emotion and still simulate emotion to that extent, will the social interaction, for physiologically even for the human, be the same, like the release of oxygen?
That's a very. Give me 5 minutes. I'm going there. It depends on the way which theoretical model we are using to understand how emotions are being manifested and are being felt. डॉक्टर बसमा ने बेसिक इमोशन थ्योरी की बात की थी. आई थिंक आपने कंस्ट्रक्टिव थ्योरी की भी बात की थी, देन अप्रेजल की भी बात की थी. I'll get back to this. जी जी.
There are two different things: understanding somebody's emotion and feeling that emotion yourself. We are talking about both these things together. किसी का emotion understand करने में there are so many nuances जो हम consciously aware नहीं हैं. You can very easily differentiate between a fake smile and a true smile. दोनों में lips आपके curve कर रहे हैं, दोनों में facial expression smiling है, but you can tell. वो जो nuances हैं, gradually computer can learn those nuances probably much better than we can, and try to understand what the other person is feeling. But the computer itself trying to feel that emotion is a totally different ballgame. So computers will be better at a lot of things, but they will probably still not be able to feel what we are feeling. So ये दोनों चीजों का difference अब clear है.
Absolutely. Quickly going here, an effective computing system can be a software, can be a mobile app, can be an autonomous vehicle, and a robot. I'll give all these examples. How that can be a software? Any idea? Have you seen any software who reacts to your emotions? Ji?
Social media apps like Facebook, where they are collecting your data based on their algorithms all the time.
Okay.
They are even, if you are seeing the documentary Social Dilemma,
जी जी जी.
they tell that they are even collecting data about how long are you spending time on a particular post or video. So if you are a right-wing person and you are seeing right-wing video,
How that is effective? The way they show you the material, that's how how the system close the loop. मतलब आपने, how you're feeling something, system knows that that's what you're feeling and does something back so that आपकी feeling या amplify हो जाए या change हो जाए. Okay.
When people on Instagram start liking posts related to self-harm or suicide, Instagram after a certain amount of time gives you a pop-up saying, hey, we think you might need help.
Okay.
Similar to that, sometimes some of the stories that you post, in return, Instagram can send like a little pop-up or be like, hey, do you want to reach out, or we notice that you're posting this stuff, things and all.
Not just on Instagram, but also generally, it's not the social media apps where they do tend to have little things like this written.
Okay.
Depending on what you're posting or what you're liking or engaging with.
So there's also been an emergence of AI companion.
Yeah.
So those are very
Exactly. I was going there because, and you will see at Microsoft में जो future in the next 5 years, the future of work is going to be completely changed. And your Microsoft Word, आपको पता clip art आपको पता होगा, annoying little bot pops up and tells you कि आपको मसला तो कोई नहीं है, because उसको पता आपको शदीद गुस्सा आ रहा है इस टाइम, क्योंकि आपसे कोई आर्ट नहीं बन रहा, आपको पता है आप 10 दफ़ा ट्राई किए इंसर्ट करने की, बार ग्राफ को नहीं हुआ, and then it pops up, you know, like that's a very good response in a terrible way. कि how can I help you, you know, so interaction wise it's very very poor, but understanding wise it does the job. कि it seems कि आपने 10 दफ़ा backspace दबाया है और या आपने 10 दफ़ा insert किया, still you're not there, can I help you? So it does translate into another modality and then get asked for a feedback.
This transition will also been like a greater proliferance of automated therapy. So you'll have apps where it's not like they're going to connect you to a therapist online or something like that.
Yeah.
But there is an AI
Yeah.
that is going to be responding to you as though they are your therapist.
Excellent. I'll get back to this also quickly. So if you look at the system, there's a user, and then in the case of a user, there's an emotion, intention, preference, speech, facial expression, gestures, physiological signal, and a lot more, which could be understood using state-of-the-art measurement tools. And here, you know, you have affective computing system. It can be a computer, mobile phone, a car, or a robot, and they can do emotion recognition, multimodal behavior analytics, dialogue systems, interaction planning, learning, multimodal synthesis, and I'll give some of these examples also. It's very, very simple. What I found, one thing very, very interesting here, look at the trend here. That's where the number of citations, that's how the number of papers are appearing. Again, you can see a big rise here. You know, that's not important. What is the most important thing on this graph? Huh?
Steady increase or rate increase.
Look at everything on this slide and tell me what you find fascinating. It's on your face, it's there. I looked at it and I said, wow, this makes so much sense. This is perfect for this class.
The highest area of application is AI and it corresponds to reference neuroscience.
Yes, excellent. Look at the areas of reference. The number one is neuroscience. Number one is neuroscience, which means that if you want to work in the area of affective computing, the area which will be the most reference and approach to so that you can know how the world is moving would be neuroscience. And which makes perfect sense, right? Because AI, this area would not be possible without AI and would also not be possible without understanding the basics of neuroscience. And hence, if you are a computer science student sitting in this class, you would know that AI and neuroscience would go hand in hand if you want to build future systems. And this is the data which shows us. This is the natural trend in the last 10 years where the world is moving. The world is moving to understand our brain in a much better way with the help of AI so that we could build systems which have 4 attributes. And I'll talk about 4 attributes also. So, इसके बहुत से challenges हैं applied computing के. I wanted to put them in the front, but look at this one. Having an integrated system that combines affect with other communicative and cognitive processes and with insights from related domains. We've been talking about it a lot in this class कि इसके अंदर जब चीज़ें जाती हैं, कोई चीज़ दाएं चली गई, कोई चीज़ बाएं चली गई, कोई चीज़ कहाँ स्टोर हो रही है, कोई चीज़ कहाँ स्टोर हो रही है, इन सबको इकट्ठा करना and system के अंदर लेके आना, it's not going to be easy. And then having a good societal impact of affective computing and ethical research is extremely important. हमने BCMS की बहुत बात की थी, and you'll see that point coming again and again. So whenever you want to design an effective computing system, there are 4 most important things जो आपको ज़रूर चाहिए होती है. Human-centered design process. जिन लोगों ने HCL लिया उनको पता है कि what is this process? The process is that whenever you're building a system, you're trying to understand the need of the human, जिसके लिए system बना रहे हैं. कि किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में, किस काम के लिए, किस प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करने के लिए ये सिस्टम इस्तेमाल होगा. दैट्स अ बेसिक्स ऑफ डिज़ाइन, ह्यूमन सेंटर्ड डिज़ाइन. उसके बाद किस कॉन्टेक्स्ट में इस्तेमाल हो रहा है, क्या वो हॉस्पिटल में हो रहा है, क्या वो घर के अंदर हो रहा है, क्या वो कार में हो रहा है, क्या वो बाहर बिल्ट एनवायरनमेंट में हो रहा है, क्या वो कंस्ट्रक्शन के लिए हो रहा है, उस कॉन्टेक्स्ट का रोल बहुत ज़्यादा है. जो बंदा इस्तेमाल कर रहा है उसका रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है कि आप एल्डरली के लिए बना रहे हैं, कि आप ऑटिस्टिक बच्चे के लिए बना रहे हैं, कि आप यंग एडल्ट के लिए बना रहे हैं, पीपल विद मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज़ के लिए बना रहे हैं, किसके लिए बना रहे हैं इफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग सिस्टम्स. एंड देन कौन से टूल्स एंड टेक को इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं आप उस काम को करने के लिए. एंड ऑल दोज थिंग्स हैव टू कम टुगेदर टू मेक श्योर दैट द सिस्टम यू मेक एक्चुअली मेक्स सेंस. ये 4 एलिमेंट्स बहुत ज़रूरी हैं मिनिमम के ऊपर. And effective computing systems address human cognition, emotion, and communication. And in सबको ज़हन में रखते हुए, they understand how a person is feeling, what the intention is, and what could possibly be the behavior of the person. इस सबको समझना. And human-centered design helps you to understand these things in the context. I'll not go into the detail of that, because we have spent quite some time in HCI on that. But those who don't have a background, you need to, just the bottom line is that you cannot understand a human behavior without actually observing that in the wilderness. You cannot make a system as complex as we are looking at here on the screen without thinking about uska actual use kya hoga. So human-centered design helps you with that. So users should be involved in the design and evaluation process, and individual variants and preferences should be accommodated. And I'll give you example कि dementia के case में, autism के case में ये चीज़ें कैसे specialized होती हैं. For example, emotional expression generated by system designed for dementia care purpose should utilize more pronounced multimodal expressions. Autism के case में आपको पता है कि उनकी जो communication या their expression of emotion and also understanding of emotion is very weak. So the kind of stimuli you use to help them कि ये smiley face है या ये sad face है is very different when as compared to the one you give to typical kids, right? So if you're making a system जिसमें आपने उनके emotions को understand करके उस emotion को दोबारा बताना है उनको, so the kind of stimuli you'll be designing would be very different when you're working with typical kids. And then similarly, जब आप dementia के case में अगर ये smile है, so over time their comprehension of smile also deteriorates. So you have to find a mechanism, how do they understand smile? And what is the intensity of a smile you need to give them so that it looks like a normal smile? So all those regulations and frameworks would have to be done in the system. So you can't have एक system बना के अब ये नहीं कह सकते कि सबके लिए चलेगा market के अंदर. That's why effective computing systems are very hard and they're not like mobile phone systems. कि आप बनाया, आपने उसको shelf पे रखा, किसी ने उसको pick किया और किसी भी मकसद के लिए इस्तेमाल करना शुरू कर दिया. They're not mobile phone systems. Right? So they have to be designed in a way that they are aligned with the needs of a particular person. जो मैंने आपको 4 बातें की थी सिस्टम की, effective computing system के अंदर 4 elements: reliability, adaptiveness, integrated, and ethical. So let's talk about reliability. All good? So reliability. What is the biggest problem right now in such computing systems? All my friends from the CS, tell me. Huh? Accuracy in why? Data sets नहीं है. ऐसा ही है. कितने लोगों ने मशीन लर्निंग का कोर्स पढ़ा हुआ है ML का? एक. आप उस बरादरी से ताल्लुक नहीं रखते, राइट? वो फैमिली नहीं है मशीन लर्निंग वाली यहाँ बैठी हुई, ठीक है. For an effective system, computing system to leave controlled lab environment and achieve its design outcome in real life settings, it is critical that its functionality continue to deliver reliable performance. लैब के अंदर चीज़ बनाना और एक्चुअल डिलीवर करना ज़मीन आसमान का फ़र्क है. ये आपने बहुत से रोबोट्स देखे हैं, मैं आपको वीडियोस भी दिखाऊंगा, बहुत ज़बरदस्त चलते हैं लैब के अंदर. जैसे ही वो यहाँ पे आते हैं तो उनसे एक कदम नहीं लिया जाता, रोबोट से यहाँ नहीं जा सकता. हालांकि कुछ ऐसे हैं जो बिल्कुल तबाहकुन हैं, बट मोस्ट ऑफ देम. And then the topic of in the wild emotion is crazy right now. People are collecting hell lot of data जिस पे वो इस्तेमाल वो जिसके ज़रिए वो they're trying to understand how people are feeling. उसमें cross culture data भी आ रहा है and you're all contributing also through. Do you know how do you contribute? Huh? Through your phones?
CC cameras.
These cameras. This data is unimaginable. ये कैमरास जो लगे हुए हैं, ये कैमरास दिस इज़ अ गोल्ड माइन फॉर द कंपनीज. ये जो कैमरास सड़कों पे लगे हुए हैं, हवावे के कैमरास, ऑल दोस ये. एंड देन यूके के अंदर तो आपको पता है दे से कि आप को टर्न भी नहीं कर सकते विदाउट बीइंग एटलीस्ट ऑन अ गिवन डे यू विल बी मॉनिटर्ड बाय अबाउट 30-35 कैमरास, अगर आप घर से निकलते हैं और आप ऑफिस तक जाते हैं. Yeah. How?
I mean, if your students' faces, your expressions, all of that is present on screen and it is recorded, then won't that also happen?
नहीं, लाइफ में तो ऑफ कोर्स हो सकता है. अगर आपकी रिकॉर्डिंग हो रही है, पता चल रहा है आप कैसे बिहेव कर रहे हैं, एंड देन यू नो दैट के देयर आर सम वेरी स्पेशलाइज्ड लर्निंग टूल्स जो कि आपको जब कहते हैं कि आपने अपना कैमरा ऑन रखना है, देयर आल्सो मॉनिटरिंग फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन, दे विल टेल यू कि आपकी क्लास में इस वक्त 3 बोरिंग बच्चे बैठे हुए हैं, या बोर्ड है या खुद बोरिंग है, सो उन दोनों को देन यू कैन इंटरवीन एंड सी कि आप क्या कर सकते हैं. बट एक और चीज़ आप भूल रहे हैं वो ये कि यू आर द चीप वर्कर्स, वी आर द चीप वर्कर्स जो बताते ही हैं कि क्राउड सोर्सिंग के अंदर कि कि ये कौन सा जो इमेज है वो बोट है, कौन सा इमेज ट्रैफिक लाइट है, कौन सा बच्चा हंस रहा है, कौन बच्चा रो रहा है. कभी देखा आपने ये? कितना मुफ्त में आप लोग काम करते हैं पूरी दुनिया के लिए. What is happening? The systems are being trained. When you in a such a why these things come to you? Because the old system cannot tell कि ये इसमें ट्रैफिक लाइट है या नहीं है. But your eye know कि अच्छा ये बोट का कोना नजर आ रहा है, ये बोट है इसके अंदर. And you say that. And then system sometimes then rejudge you कि are you sure? वो आपको देखा होगा आप लोगों ने. And these crowdsourced systems are being designed to get this data from you so that they can train these systems. And these systems get better and better over time. That is how we get the training data. And we also do that on our website. So we have liberty that अगर मैंने कुछ चीज़ ट्रेन करनी है अपनी वेबसाइट में वो डाल दूंगा. सी जी I 500%. 500%. Why do you think they can't ask us कि इसमें लिखा क्या हुआ है? There's so many ways, but they give you the real life images. And they're complex images. And if you just from now onwards look at the image and think from a computer perspective, would computer be able to know कि इसमें red light है या नहीं है? या इसमें boat है या नहीं, इसमें motorbike है या नहीं है, या इसमें mountain है या नहीं है, या इसमें tree है या नहीं है. You'll say a computer would find it very very hard because of this complexity. But for you, and जब आपने उसको बता दिया, उसने refresh किया, and then जब 100 लोगों ने पूरी दुनिया से बता दिया, तो जो कल्चर का प्रॉब्लम था, you're also solving for that problem. कि how people perceive those things in different cultures. Well, we got the data. And the data you get is in millions and millions and millions. So we're all contributing to that also. Ji, I'll skip that part. Ji, बताएं.
Verification part of these captchas work because, like, I mean, if the computer itself doesn't really know.
Yeah, it's a good. No. So computer, what happens? There are multiple layers of this captcha design. So आपने देखा होगा कि very often when the computer doesn't know, उसको भी समझ नहीं आती, and then second दोबारा करें आप. Have you seen those elements जहाँ पे आपको repeat करने को कहता है? And you wonder, यार मैंने अभी ठीक किया था. And that's exactly the problem you're trying to say. And then they say, अगर आप imagine, look at this problem as a human, कि आपके पास 4 तस्वीरें थी, 4 pics में से 2 को आपने कहा इसमें red light है. And computer has no bloody clue about it. How computer would verify? Will show the same picture again, and if you click again, computer would say बंदा बेवकूफ नहीं है. I got it right.
So you cannot also just compare it to like other results. Like,
Of course. बिल्कुल हो रहा है. And then देखिए ना, उसके पास तो लाइव डेटा आ रहा है ना उस इमेज के अगेंस्ट, तो उसको पता ये है कि उस इमेज के अगेंस्ट क्या थ्रेशोल्ड है फॉर बीइंग ट्रीटेड एज बोट और विदाउट बोट. If the level is like 60-40 or 50-50, it still needs more data, so will not make a decision. But if it's very very clear 90-10, and शायद वो इमेज को सिस्टम से बाहर निकाल देगा. Okay, then you don't need more data. And we are contributing. Okay, this is the point I also wanted to bring in here. Okay, again, my point was that I wanted to build a connection, that why are you sitting together? Affective computing is one of the hottest areas right now in the industry, and it is only possible when a biologist and a computer scientist and a psychologist sit together and understand ये काम कैसे करता है और ये काम कैसे करता है और machines कैसे काम करती हैं. That's the future. There is no way that you can solve these complex problems without thinking about जो लम्स का मोटो है, learning without borders. And अगर आप उस border की actual base पे जाएं, actually it makes perfect sense for preparing our students for 21st century, because you want to break those borders and silos of schools, and you want to ensure that if you're a student of management sciences and you're taking a marketing course, and if you have taken additional math, for example, but you still love, management sciences, there is no harm in taking a course on machine learning, because जब आप industry में जाएंगे, the way you can solve problems, no one else can solve the problem. And you will need that mindset. Because when you look at the data, जो मार्केट रिसर्च से आपके पास आया है, जिसने कहा ये कि पूरे पाकिस्तान में इतनी कोका कोला बिकती है, you will say कि यार इसको समझने का एक और तरीका भी है. And you will bring that tool out because you learned that tool in a CS class, not in the management science class. And that fusion is extremely important in the future, and that's why LUM students would be able to do a much better job as compared to other students, provided that you actually holistically understand this framework of thinking and reasoning. And that's where we keep on saying that the LUMS ka framework naturally allows us that we can excel in 21st century, because बहुत जगहों पे CS is completely a silo. Clinical psychology is complete silo. And bio तो वैसे ही आपको पता है बिल्कुल silo में चलती है. Unfortunately, आपको मुझसे बहुत बेहतर पता है. Bio वालों को neuroscience बेचना मुश्किल है, तो imagine करें CS बेचना हो. So, so it's difficult. So now you're sitting here, that's why. Because name one area. Robotics without psychology and biology, impossible. Take any big company in the world which works on robotics and you'll find biologists there. Any big company in robotics. And ethical we'll talk about at the end of the lecture. And let me give you this whole map. Look at how affective computing is being done. यहाँ पे आपके पास applied affective computing है, एक तरफ आपके पास whole frame of ethics है, एक तरफ whole frame of research methodology है, whole frame of theory है, and context है. Context किन domains में जा रहा है, किन application areas में आ रहा है, कौन humans के अंदर humans हैं, आपके वो कौन से task perform करते हैं, आपकी theory में आपकी emotion की theory है, interactions की theories हैं, और communication की theories हैं. And then ethics के अंदर complete ethic का framework है. Researcher की तरफ से ethics क्या होंगे, practitioner की तरफ जिसको use करेंगे क्या होंगे, and then आपने governance level पे कौन सा ethical framework बनाने हैं. What can you do in this country? What is allowed, what is not allowed? And they'll be guided by the much higher level of framework, जो कि religion हो सकता है, जो कि social constructs हो सकते हैं, how the society evolve हो सकता है, all those things. They all come into play. कि क्या allowed है, क्या नहीं allowed है. So see, all this area, do you think that although यहाँ पे computing लिखा हुआ है, computer science would remotely be able to do these things? Not even remote. Look at this area of ethics. हमारा क्या ताल्लुक इन चीज़ों से यार? अगर आप जिस तरह हमारी ट्रेनिंग हुई है पहले 4 साल की एज अ CS स्टूडेंट, कितना हमने एथिक्स के बारे में क्लासेस में बात की है. आस्क अ फंडामेंटल क्वेश्चन. अगर आप नंबर ऑफ आवर्स स्पेंड एंड BS डिग्री आप निकाल लें और उसमें से टॉक अबाउट द एथिक वाला पार्ट एंड द फ्यूचर ऑफ कंप्यूटिंग इन 21st सेंचुरी, कितनी डिस्कशन हुई होगी? 3 घंटे 4 साल में, 5 घंटे, 10 घंटे, दैट्स इट. फिलॉसफी ऑफ कंप्यूटिंग कितनी डिस्कशन हुई है? कोई कोर्स भी नहीं पढ़ते आप लोग, मैंडेटरी भी नहीं है. सो माई पॉइंट इज के दिस इज वाई अ कोर्सेज लाइक दिस आर इम्पोर्टेंट. जी.
So like with the release of GPT-4, उसमें like they made it more restrictive as in more safer. And from a market perspective, if anyone wants to jump into the language learning model market, and against a competitor like GPT-4 OpenAI, they would have to introduce this element of more freedom in their language learning model, so that people are attracted to it. So उसमें उन्हें ethics lift करनी, like they would have to be more, in order to profit, they would have to sort of put more of a leniency on their ethical framework. तो ये इसके कैसे?
ये तो आप बहुत छोटे लेवल की बात कर रहे हो इब्राहिम. सो थिंक अबाउट अभी तक दुनिया में, एनालॉग दुनिया में, जब हम कुछ भी सेंटर्ड, ये तो नहीं है ना कि सेंटरिंग एनालॉग दुनिया में नहीं होती, कंप्यूटर्स में इसीलिए सेंटरिंग होती है ना कि एनालॉग दुनिया में सेंटरिंग होती है. तो अगर मुझे आप पेरेंटिंग के मॉडल्स बताओ 200 साल पहले तक के, और आप मुझे डॉक्टर पेशेंट रिलेशनशिप्स के मॉडल्स को देखो, तो उसमें जो हस्पताल है वो आजकल का हस्पताल किस पर सेंटर्ड है? पाकिस्तान में अस्पताल किसकी कन्वीनियंस के लिए चलता है? एग्जैक्टली. सो पेशेंट सेंटर जब आप उसको करते हो तो आपने क्या किया है? आपने दैट इज बेसिकली आपने क्या किया? आपने पावरफुल को सेंटर से हटा के आपने जिसके पास कम पावर है बट जिसकी जरूरत ज्यादा है उसको सेंटर में लगा दिया है. इसी तरह से अगर आप पेरेंटिंग के मॉडल्स देखो, अप अंटिल द मिडल ऑफ द 19th सेंचुरी सारी पेरेंटिंग पेरेंट्स की कन्वीनियंस के लिए होती थी, राइट? ये जो हमने अब बच्चों को अपने शहजादे बना दिया है, बिल्कुल उसका बिल्कुल उल्टा कर दिया है। ये दिस अ वेरी न्यू फिनोमेनन, राइट? बट अगेन उसमें पेरेंट्स हैव ऑल द पावर, आपने अब बच्चों को पावर दे दिया है, राइट? सो जो आप बात कर रहे हो ना कि वो ज़्यादा रिस्के हो कि ज़्यादा लोगों को अट्रैक्ट कर देगा, ये तो बड़ी वो बड़ा तीसरा जो डायना फॉर्सिथ ने जिसके ऊपर की बड़ी अच्छी किताब लिखी है वो ये है कि ये मॉडल्स आप ट्रेन कर रहे हो, राइट? हम सबके अपने बायसेस हैं। सो सिर्फ अगर फॉर एग्जांपल चिट्टे बंदे बनाए मॉडल्स ये सारे, तो फिर वो बाकी सारे लोगों पे अप्लाई नहीं करेंगे, बिकॉज हमारी इमोशंस में बहुत वेरिएबिलिटी है। तो representation in people who are training these models is really important. So
and that has a big problem actually. जब ये आपने बात थर्ड वाली बात की है, you know, very interesting. The world is not designed for females, you know, and there are so many examples which they give कि data training में नहीं है, and then they talk about imagine करें कि दुनिया तो design है ही नहीं females के लिए, but then if you're a black female, you know, and you just don't exist, you know, in the whole system. You look at the data जिसमें training हुई है, ये बनाने वाले हुए हैं, तो then if you're a female then it's negligible, and then you're a black female, story ख़त्म. So and then this is how the system is working. So I'll not spend some time on this. I'll not spend time on this quickly going through because आपको ये बहुत चीज़ें पहले पता हैं. सबको याद है हमने basic emotion theory की बात की थी, right? हमने Ekman की बात की थी. And then we talked about the 6 basic model, happiness, sadness, disgust. उस 6 के अलावा on the top of it हमने additional models की बात की थी जो affective neuroscience के अंदर ये models जो play, grief, panic, rage, care आ रहा है. क्रॉस कल्चर के अंदर भी बहुत से मॉडल्स आते हैं, बट जो आपका बेसिक काम शुरू हुआ है इफेक्टिव कंप्यूटिंग के अंदर वो हैप्पीनेस, सैडनेस, फियर के ऊपर हुआ है. एंड फियर वाज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट डिफिकल्ट वंस टू एक्चुअली गेट. एनीबडी कैन टेल मी व्हाई फियर इज वेरी वेरी हार्ड इन टर्म्स ऑफ लेट्स से बेसिक इमोशन? कंप्यूटर्स को समझाना आपने ये है कि मैं खौफजदा हूँ. डू यू थिंक आसान काम है कंप्यूटर को बताना ये आई एम अफ्रेड? फियर है जी. Yeah. So by the way, ये जो डेटा कलेक्शन वाली चीज़ है इस पर बहुत रिसर्च हो रही है आजकल. सो ये जो डॉक्टर बसवा बात कर रही थी डेटा कलेक्शन की, पार्ट ऑफ माई PhD was actually focused on the quality of this data which will be fed to the system so the system can improve. So बहुत एडवांस तरीके हैं डेटा कलेक्शन करने के, एंड बट स्टिल यू नो बट यू कैन फाइंड पीपल जिनको डर लगता है. मतलब ऐसा मसला नहीं है, आई कैन आप मुझे हॉरर मूवी दिखाएं मुझे डर लगेगा, यू नो. मेरे बेटे को नहीं लगता, वो मेरा मजाक उड़ाता है, बट दैट्स फाइन, यू नो. मुझे लगता है तो मैं भाग जाऊंगा कमरे से, मूवी नहीं देख सकता. तो अगर आप मेरा शक्ल देखेंगे आपको बिल्कुल समझ आ जाएगी कि भाई मैं डर गया हूँ, लेकिन मेरा एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ डर इज जस्ट नॉट अ फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन. दैट्स द पॉइंट, राइट? आई डोंट एक्सप्रेस फियर ओनली थ्रू फेस, पूरी बॉडी से डर नजर आ रहा होता है, राइट? एंड इफ यू लुक एट देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क डन कि जब लोग यू नो ATMs के अंदर देयर वाज अ स्टडी, जब कोई आता है मक करने के लिए आपका पिस्टल वगैरह रखता है, वो जो कॉम्प्लेक्स फीलिंग है आपकी उस वक्त कि मेरे साथ हो क्या गया होगा, कभी डर स्केयर बनता है, कभी वो इंटेंस फीलिंग आती है, उस कॉम्प्लेक्सिटी को समझना, हाउ आर यू फीलिंग. आई एम जस्ट गिविंग यू वन मोर एग्जांपल, जस्ट इमेजिन दैट. सो बाय जस्ट लुकिंग एट फेशियल एक्सप्रेशन दिस इज अ गुड स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट, बट डजंट टेक यू देयर जहाँ पे जाना चाहते हैं जी. हैप्पीनेस के बारे में थोड़ा सा आपकी इंटेंसिटी, यू नो, देयर इज अ वैलेंस एंड देयर इज एन अराउजल, राइट? सो नेगेटिव पॉजिटिव, एंड आप कितने एक्साइटेड हैं, यस एंड मोर. हैप्पीनेस के केस में आई थिंक लोग कहते हैं कि इतना मुश्किल नहीं है. एंगर ऑल्सो इज अ वेरी डिफिकल्ट इमोशन, एंड फियर इज ऑल्सो. सो पीपल स्टार्ट विद हैप्पीनेस एंड सैडनेस. जो जितने भी आपके कंप्यूटिंग सिस्टम्स हैं वो वैलेंस एंड अराउजल पे चलते हैं. वो देखते ही हैं कि आप खुश हैं, आपके नेगेटिव हैं या पॉजिटिव हैं, उसकी इंटेंसिटी कितनी है, बहुत ज़्यादा है, बहुत कम है. इट्स अ गुड स्टार्टिंग पॉइंट फॉर द सिस्टम, एंड देन उसके बाद आप उस पर बिल्ड करते जाते हैं. ओके, सो ये आपका बेसिक इमोशन का मॉडल था. ये भी आपने डॉक्टर बसवा मेरे ख्याल में उनको बताया था, जिसमें आपके पास अराउजल है, आपके पास वैलेंस है, प्लेजर एक तरफ है. अगर आपका हाई अराउजल एंड प्लेजर है तो एक्साइटमेंट है, लेकिन आपकी इधर डिस्ट्रेस है, इधर डिप्रेशन है, और इधर कंटेंटमेंट है, राइट? सो डिपेंडिंग ऑन वेयर यू आर, आपका हाई अराउजल, लो अराउजल है, आपके पास you know, high valence, low valence hai, you'll be in this on this Cartesian plane. Again, these things are are not important. The important चीज़ ये है कि how would you understand emotion? Do you work with the basic theory of emotion, BET जो है, or do you take an appraisal theory of emotion जो कहती ये है कि the way you appraise an emotion, you will express yourself, and it's just not an automatic reaction जो कि biologically आपके पास आ गया क्योंकि आप शेर से डर गए थे इसलिए आपको हर हाल में fear show करना ही करना है, but उसके पीछे पूरे का पूरा appraisal mechanism in place है. So depending on आप उसको करते हैं या आप कहते ये हैं कि assume that emotions are created in the mind of a perceiver and are constructed of a core affective changes जो आपकी हो रही होती है. आपकी ये भी theory बहुत actively लोग इसको भी इस्तेमाल करते हैं. I'm not talking about कौन सी ठीक है कौन सी गलत है, but the idea is कि ऐसा नहीं है कि आपने happiness sadness को देखा और कंप्यूटर को कहा इसको समझ जाओ. Computer takes a complete theoretical model, किसका मतलब क्या है, and then computer start working on it. क्या आप उसको basic emotion की theory दे रहे हैं, क्या आप उसको appraisal की दे रहे हैं, क्या आपको उसको constructivist approach दे रहे हैं, क्या दे रहे हैं. और इस केस के अंदर आपका जो पूरे का पूरा मॉडल है फॉर अंडरस्टैंडिंग इमोशन वुड बी वेरी डिफरेंट. एंड अगेन द आइडिया इज़ नॉट टू गो इनटू द डिटेल. आइडिया इज़ के इमोशंस आर नॉट वेरी सिंपल. मैं एक दफ़ा आपने जो सवाल पूछा ना कि एशियंस, मैं कॉन्फ्रेंस में था बेल्जियम में, आई थिंक मैं आई डोंट रिमेंबर द सिटी, आई थिंक ब्रूज में था. तो हम कॉन्फ्रेंस में खड़े हुए प्रेजेंटेशन दे रहे थे. एक बंदे ने ऐसा सवाल किया कि जो एशियंस होते हैं वो एक्सप्रेसिव होते ही नहीं होते, इस किस्म की चीज़ थी. तो उसने कहा देखें जी, उसमें स्टार्ट किया फ्रेंच में एंड देन मूव टुवर्ड्स इंग्लिश. एशिया इज़ नॉट अ कंट्री, इज़ अ कॉन्टिनेंट, एंड इज द कॉन्टिनेंट, दैट्स वाई प्लीज़ डोंट यूज़ दिस टर्म, आई एम ऑफेंडेड. हमने कहा हुआ क्या आपको? हमने कहा नहीं, आपने एशिया नहीं कहना, आपने कहना तो बी वेरी वेरी स्पेसिफिक कि चाइनीज़ की बात करें, आप जापानीज़ की बात करें, आप वियतनाम की बात करें. दिस इज़ अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. एंड मेरे साथ बहुत बड़ा मसला था क्योंकि जब मैं पाकिस्तान का डेटा प्रेजेंट करता था आई विल बी लेबल्ड एज एशिया, कि एशियन वर्सेस कॉकेशियन, राइट? बट पाकिस्तान इज़ एशियन, बट एशियन ऑफ व्हाट? एक बहुत ख़ास किस्म का ग्रुप है. सो व्हेन यू लेबल थिंग्स एंड यू सी लॉट ऑफ दैट स्टडीज़ के एक्सप्रेशन ऑफ इमोशन बाय कॉकेशियंस एंड एशियंस एंड एशियन वर्सेस दिस एंड दैट. सो ये बहुत बड़ा लेबल है जी.
So just to comment about like the complexity of emotion,
Yeah.
and how it's displayed. So you know about DALI, right? The text to image.
Yeah, of course.
When you input any emotion, you can add a cultural context to it, and your images change drastically. And for a lot of complex emotions such as fear or anger, all the images you get are like vary drastically. And because it's just learning off of images that are labeled by humans already, that just shows you the complexity of emotions.
Yeah.
And especially in cultural context.
Absolutely. It's a very good example. I have used that a lot, by the way. And we have also got some of the prints from that. Show me, an image, a painting done by maybe a self-portrait in truck art style, done by that artist in that mode, and it will start combining things.
Even like, for example, I tested it with like, what would happiness look like?
Like.
What would it sound like?
Yeah.
So the images it created, it would change because I did it in like a Pakistani setting or like in a Western setting, and it changes drastically, especially in cases of love and happiness.
So how did it look like, by the way, quickly? अगर आप पाकिस्तान के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखें, what happiness is?
When I searched for happiness in like a European context, it was a kid in a forest surrounded by colorful sounds.
Okay.
Pakistani context, it was a group of people.
Okay.
There, and
I
it
thought-
was about communication.
I thought eating. मतलब what else, आप लाहौर में क्या मतलब कहाँ मज़ा किस चीज़ में है रोटी खाने में?
उसमें वो था कि like I found it interesting that when you added like a more desi like context to it, it showed more of like a communal setting for happiness.
That's actually a wonderful addition to whatever we are talking about right now. Cultural context, आपकी emotional perception को भी alter करता है.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's altering your expression as well, not just perception.
So very quickly, we have 20 minutes only, and I want to show you some examples also. I thought I'll finish very quickly, but interesting questions. So अगर आप यूज़र को देखें, आपके पास ये मोडालिटीज़ आ सकती हैं, राइट? आपके फिजियोलॉजी की है, लिंग्विस्टिक की है, विजुअल है, ऑडियो है, ये आपका इमोशन अवेयर सिस्टम है, मल्टी मोडालिटी होती है एंड वापस सिस्टम को अंडरस्टैंड करता है और रिस्पॉन्ड बैक करता है, राइट? सो आपके ख्याल में इन 4 मोडालिटीज़ में से सबसे हाई एक्यूरेसी किसकी होगी अभी तक? कॉमन सेंस क्या कहती है? फिजियोलॉजी?
We can have a bow.
कितने लोग कहते हैं विजुअल? ओके। कितने लोग कहते हैं लिंग्विस्टिक? इमोशन की बात हो रही है, ये बात नहीं हो रही कि अंडरस्टैंड कर इमोशन। कितने लोग कहते हैं ऑडियो? कितने लोग कहते हैं फिजियोलॉजी? जो फिजियोलॉजी वाले वो फिजियोलॉजी क्यों कहते हैं?
Because that's the most granular data.
Yeah. Yeah.
Emotion is also, I mean,
That's so if you know exactly what to look at and where to look at in physiology, you'll get the best results for that.
I also just looked at it from the context that audio, visual, and linguistic could all be fake, but physiology would like.
No, physiology can also be fake. Dr. Basma?
I mean, you have to be very, very good, right? कि मतलब जो so like the example of like physiology जो हमें familiar is a lie detection machine, right? कि
Yeah.
आपकी ज़बान झूठ बोलती है, आपका facial expression झूठ बोलता है, but जो आपका tremor है ना हाथ का, I mean, there are people who outsmart the lie detector machine. They're few and far between. And मैं कई बार सोचती हूँ कि उनका दिल निकाल के देखना चाहिए कि कैसा होता है कि वो उनकी वो
So अगर आप I go a little further, तो आपके पास visual modality है, आपके पास facial है, आपके पास body gestures हैं, audio, physiological, linguistic. Think about gestures. How can you contribute towards understanding human emotion through gestures?
Like for example, if you're angry or you're happy, you make certain gestures
Yeah.
like that. So
And if you're Italian, then you don't need anything else, just gestures. Yeah?
But gestures is also not flourishing, right? Like when I moved to the US initially, my biggest problem, I lived in Chicago, I was doing my residency, my biggest problem was that I couldn't read Kale logon ki body language.
Yeah.
And so
Me neither.
basically then I treated all of them as dangerous, and that's a hyper-vigilant,
Yeah.
that's a very anxiety-causing state.
Yeah.
It took me 3 months to learn that they have a completely different body language from Pakistani, people that are in Pakistan that I was familiar with. And it's just basically chota sa shoulder ka silhouette. It's how you hold your knee at an angle. It's how, you speed up and slow down. ये सारी चीज़ें जो कि आपका brain सारा वक्त patterns बना के set patterns cerebellum में जा रहे हैं और हमें पता भी नहीं है कि ये हो रहा है. जब वो remove होता है तो we find out कि वो missing हो गया है.
Yeah.
Costs of further delay में सिर्फ एक छोटा सा incident इसमें
Sure.
very explicit. We were in Ohio, एक दोस्त के घर खाना था and he had invited a lot of local people. गोरे Ohio में black spots ज़्यादा हैं, blacks भी थे और हम लोग बहुत अच्छे बाद मिल रहे थे and we were all like, oh क्या हाल है? The way we are very loud, we are very expressive. We would hug each other as the friends and slap on the shoulder और हम बहुत physical हैं in our expressions. Goras are not.
Yeah.
They would just say hello, hi, oh, been a long time. वो कोई काला हमें note कर रहा था. We didn't realize. And the guy ultimately walks up to us and says, hey man, you're just like us. You're doing things the way we do.
Yeah.
And he started, जैसे chit chat or conversation शुरू हुई. Later on, we found out he was the governor of Ohio. और ये बिल्कुल सही है. It's so cultural.
Yeah.
Physical expression, your body language, your gestures.
And imagine, take this example and imagine now you live in Europe, right? And then where you have people coming from the, Scandinavian belt, Danes and Swedes and Norwegian, with a very specific and subtle way of expressing emotion. And then you have the complete southern belt where you have Italians and Portuguese and Spanish and of course Greeks. And they're expressing emotion. Then you have the central belt, jo ke, Swiss and Swiss German and then Dutch belt. So it reminds me of another example also. I used to share an apartment with an Italian and he was a chef, a good friend, Marco. So, and I was making a pasta at home. And so you can imagine कि Italian ho or chef ho, वो भी Milan का हो. So this can't get worse than this, इमेजिन करें तो वो ही वाज विद शेयरिंग अपार्टमेंट, यू नो, मैं पास्ता बना रहा हूँ, मेरे पास आ रहा है, अच्छा वो आ रहा है तो एक सर्टन किस्म का ना वो डिस्ट्रेस दिखा रहा है मुझे ना ऑन द वे आई एम मेकिंग पास्ता, एंड आई एम, मेरे वाइल्डेस्ट ड्रीम्स में भी नहीं है कि उसको मेरा प्रोसेस बनाने का बुरा लग रहा है। अब वो आता है, कुछ देखता है, हाउ आर यू, मैं आई एम गुड, यू आर मेकिंग इट, मैं आई एम मेकिंग इट, यू नो, एंड देन वो चला गया बाहर करते हुए, एंड देन 15 मिनट के बाद ना वो आया अंदर, उससे रहा नहीं गया, सुलेमान, दिस इज शिट पास्ता, मैं कहा व्हाट हैपेंड, you have not put a clock there, and it gave me a whole lecture of how to make a pasta. And all those signals he was giving me in a very polite way in the first 15 minutes, I missed everything. That he was annoyed, he was not liking it, he was telling me, baaz aa jao, he was telling me, look at me, I want to talk to you. I did not pay attention on these things. And then he broke and then told me, tum piche ho jao, isko aise nahi aise banate. And these are the cultural elements, and then when you understand those things, and next time, of course, I will never do this mistake, and before I say कि अच्छा पिज़्ज़ा है, मेरे सामने Italian बैठा होगा, मैं कहूँगा, how do you think? And वो हमेशा ये कहेगा बहुत बुरा है, ठीक है, and then I know कि मुझे बुरा ही कहना है. So these are the things you learn over time, and for a computer to understand this context, you know, where when you put them in a supermarket and tell them कि मुझे best चीज़ दो, and the computer thinks कि मैं आपको best चीज़ दे दूँगा, it's just not going to be that easy. There are so many robots out there in the supermarket because I'm looking at the thing in a very different way. You have to ask 50 different questions before, you know, best cheese. Or you look at my grocery bag को देखो and compute करो ये कि मेरे पास अगर मैंने रगू बनाना है तो मेरे पास सब कुछ पड़ा हुआ है, तो मुझे कौन सा चीज़ चाहिए, right? So, and then you can say कि आपको ये चीज़ चाहिए, because then you have a good understanding of the data depending on my basket जो मैंने चीज़ें दी हैं. The system has to think in a very different way to be able to help us understand how to move forward. My final point before I show you videos is that multimodality क्या होगी, वो ये होगी कि आपने सबको फ्यूज करना है. ऐसा ही है, आपके पास यहाँ से ये डेटा आ रहा है, आपके पास ये डेटा आ रहा है, आपके पास लेक्सिकल, ऑडियो, फिजियोलॉजिकल बिहेवियर आपने इकट्ठा किया और आपने हर एक को वेट असाइन किया और आपने कहा ये कि अब मुझे इसमें से कोई एक स्टेट निकालनी है, हाउ सुलेमान इज फीलिंग. Understand? That's what we are trying to do, looking at all the data. But keep in mind that हर modality की weightage and quality same नहीं है. पहली बात तो ये, which means that you don't need all the modalities to be able to make an effective system which works. Because हर modality की integration की cost भी बहुत ज़्यादा है. So sometimes होता क्या है कि for example आपके visual and facial give you about 80% accuracy. Take an example. You add another modality, let's say audio, it takes you at 87%. Now you add, for example, linguistic की चीज़, it takes you at 89%. You add another one, it gives you 1% more. So the cost of adding 2 additional modalities in the system is going to be very, very high, but उनका जो recovery ROI है is going to be very, very low. So what people do actually, they stop at the modality जहाँ पे आपको optimal मिल गया है, उसके बाद आपकी investment बहुत ज़्यादा है, लेकिन return बहुत कम है in terms of accuracy. Do you see my point? So you really have to experiment to see किस context में, किन लोगों के लिए, किस task पे, कौन सी modalities को fuse करना.
I mean, looping back to the conversation that we had about how important context is, I feel like you would have to design multiple different multimodal systems.
Yes.
For different contexts.
Yes. And or another way to look at it, just to answer your question, is that in the future you will have a very good visual system as a unimodality, right? So visual system as a unimodality would work very well. A visual system in terms of an audio modality would work very well, right? So उनकी अपनी accuracy would have gone to a point जहाँ पे वो बहुत ज़बरदस्त है. And then when you start fusing them, then it's more like a plug and play system, and then a layer जहाँ पे आपने उसको manipulate करना है. And that's how people are working on it. कि you make an independent systems, and then when you fuse them, you know, at this layer के ऊपर, इस वाली layer के ऊपर, hidden layers के ऊपर, that's where you make all the decision making. So the user is blind to all these things. All you know, Suleiman is happy or sad. That's it. और अगर आप इसकी एग्जाम्पल लें यहाँ पे देखें, तो यहाँ पे आपके पास डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ फ्यूजन्स आ रही हैं, राइट? एक फ्यूजन आपके पास कहाँ पे हो रही है, अगर आप इसको देखें, आपके पास स्किन कंडक्टेंस है, आपके पास स्किन टेम्परेचर है, ठीक है, और आपके पास एक्सेलरेशन है. ये आपके पास आ गया, डेटा फिल्टर हुआ, सिग्नल नॉर्मलाइज हुआ, फ्यूजन हुआ, और इनकोडर में गया, उसने बताया ये कि आप हाउ आर यू फीलिंग राइट नाउ, स्ट्रेस कितना है, क्या है. यहाँ पे फ्यूजन कहाँ पे हो रही है, इस जगह पे हो रही है, इधर फ्यूजन यहाँ पे हो रही है. So depending on how do you build a model, आपका अर्ली फ्यूजन का मॉडल है या आपके पास लेट फ्यूजन का मॉडल है, you will get different type of data and results depending on that. और इसी तरह काम हो रहा है, यानी हम जब सिस्टम बनाते हैं हम इस कंपोनेंट को सेपरेट बनाते हैं, इसको सेपरेट बनाते हैं, फ्यूजन मैकेनिज्म सेपरेट बनाते हैं, फीचर लर्निंग सेपरेट बनाते हैं, एंड देन डिसीजन मेकिंग सेपरेट होती है. So you can take it to different cultural contexts and settings and still use them. Okay, give me 5 application areas where you think कल के दिन अगर हम सिस्टम बनाना शुरू करें तो will be successful. An effective computing system which can work tomorrow and will be very helpful and valuable. We don't need to wait like BCI for the next 20 years. This is all possible tomorrow and today. Give me 4 or 5 examples. Ji?
One already existing example is one of the research
Uncha.
one of the research papers that I was studying. It was about predicting depression via social media.
Predicting depression via social media.
Yeah, so it was looking at different modalities, like you mentioned, like linguistic styles of the user on social
Yes.
media, and also their sleep patterns and insomnia index.
बिल्कुल ठीक है. Anybody else? जी?
I think this is also something that is making work, but there are like aids for elderly people that try to predict if they're going to fall before they fall and like call them before it.
Yes, I'll show you one example for that also. What else?
I don't know how accurate it might be for testing vision, for example, eyesight के कितना करीब से देख लो, कितना zoom करने की आप like to read a certain image आगे.
आपकी eyesight and then system can adopt depending on the quality of your right now eyesight. ठीक है. What else?
For people with emotional disorders such as जिसमें dysregulation होती है, such as bipolar disorder, तो उसमें I feel like it could be really useful in kind of notifying you or letting you know where your kind of danger signs are, catch it
And then-
towards mania
Yeah.
or towards depression.
ठीक है. So continuously knowing how are you feeling and regulating it, giving you feedback that how you should possibly react. Good. So very quickly, different areas हैं. Let me quickly show you some examples. जो areas हैं वो इनमें आते हैं आपका. I'm not going into the details, but next time अगर मुझे time मिलेगा, I'll talk about it. There is a model aspect, there is an interaction aspect, there is a human aspect, and there is a design aspect. And you will see all 4 things in some of the examples I'm going to show you. This is the iCat, जिस पे मैंने बहुत काम किया. I was a part of the team who worked on this at Philips long time ago, and I thought I should just as a tribute to Philips, I'll start with this. Look at this one.
Files in the home, aimed at developing software technologies for decision-making and reasoning. iCat's interaction style is modeled
ये
after
20 साल पुरानी है.
humans using speech, facial expressions, and intelligent behavior. In this example, iCat acts as a game buddy.
Hi, my name is Katie. What is yours?
My name is Anne.
Nice to meet you, Anne. I like playing games. Would you like to play one with me?
Okay.
ये हमने elderly homes के लिए बनाई थी, जहाँ पे they can talk. हाँ?
Sleep paralysis stable लग रहा है.
The game is called tic-tac-toe.
If you're a computer scientist, you will understand it was the best technology possible आज से 18 साल पहले. Look at the motor movements.
If it's your turn, point fingers and claws will give it to you.
Huh?
Was this used to collect fear key data?
Fear data? No, there is another one for that.
They'll become your way. Do
That's a very modern robot right now.
Another thing that these robots can do is wayfinding. So this is great for instance, let's say you're trying to look for the Apple Store or the Heineken Lounge. What the robot can do now is you can find where the Heineken Lounge is and it can actually physically take you there. So with markers that we have set up in the building, it recognizes where it's going and it will take the person. It'll actually provide businesses analytics. So we can actually tell you how many meals are coming up.
And you will find these a lot in Japan.
If there's one thing that popular culture has gotten right, it's that pretty soon most of us will have relationships with robots. In fact, you probably already have some basic relationships with machines. When I say relationships, you might think of romantic relationships, but the hype around sex robots is just that, hype. That's not gonna be a thing for a while. And anyway, most relationships aren't sexy, but they're still important. And robots may very well be a part of the most important relationships in your life. Welcome to Uprising.
You will react and we do the same. So maybe we are also a computer. So I don't know where is the difference, the real difference.
But even if we assume that Buddy's emotions aren't real, our emotions are. And that's all it takes for a relationship to be real.
If you ask people to drop Buddy from a table, they say, I won't do that. I will hurt him, not it. No.
So the emotional part is for sure something that you bring. After a year of interaction now, I see Buddy like a teenager, a part of my family or my cycle of friends, but growing up and able to have more and more ability in the future.
Right now, Buddy is still in beta testing. But once he's ready for consumers, he won't just be a toy. One of his most important roles will be helping us take care of our elders.
You, and yes, sometimes to annoy you, just like a real pet.
I'm not saying you need to buy this. It is there.
Emo uses 2 highly advanced deep neural network CPUs and more than 10 sensors. It's a complex system that contains millions of lines of code to transform AI into a lifelike personality complete with emotions. His friendly face has a camera and is also the window to the world, but obstacles, and he knows not to fall off the table edge. We have designed games and dances for Emo. We did extensive research and tests, and
आप में से कितने लोग ये खरीदेंगे? Right? It's not bad, right? And we are there. It is in the market. And this is for the 10 years. Most of my research was कि आपने ऐसे objects कैसे बनाने हैं. And this is not by accident. This is by lot of research. Let me show you quick more examples. Look at this one.
Dr. Salman, just 1 second. So how many of you recognize that ये जो पिछला वाला robot था, इसकी movements and the fact कि वो एक टांग पे खड़ा हो जाता है, it dances better than me, honestly. So the fact that that is years and years and years of code, right?
Yeah.
Because आप लोग पढ़ बैठे हो कि emotion movement कितनी मुश्किल है.
Yeah. Look at this one now.
You'll need paper and a pencil. You're going to make some kind of notes. For this mission, you'll need to talk to one of your friends about what makes them happy, and then tell me all about it. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Mom, can we invite Mason over to play?
Sure.
Have a new mission. We're gonna talk about things that make us happy. Bye, Moxie.
See you soon.
And this is the scariest thing ever made on earth, you know. Oh, I don't like them. Yeah. Everybody knows about them? Everybody in the class? No? Just 1 second and then, because this is scary. This can come anywhere. Look at this. Shit. So this is well-being, elderly, and robotics.
Hi, Grandma. I miss you. I miss you too. Hey, you got the toy I said. Yeah, I love it. Extra. Follow me. Cool. All right, race you. Come on.
So they turned it off.
And now I totally believe you. Thanks.
I have a few more videos, but as we're running out of time, this is the showstopper.
Where is it? Oh, here he is. That's it. What's anything on top? Oh my goodness. You got a jaguar. Where is it? What? Not the lap. Oh no, man. You trust this? Amanda. Oh my, I cannot believe this. Are you buckled? Yes, I want to be buckled. Oh no. I wish. Jimmy says he's scared. I am too. Amanda, my mom, what this car can, what are the cops? Cops will see this.
Intersection?
I'll never forget this. Never. He did a better, the car did a better job than if somebody was driving.
You just said the same thing. You two said the same thing.
Oh, you know what these cost? Jaguar? What is that going to this world?
Through the stoplight.
See how it slows down? Well, you better not get too close. Somebody see how close. See?
That's good.
Oh, yes. You sure this ain't a cop car? Oh, no, we're over that. Arrive in 3 minutes. This made my day.
Me too.
Oh, my goodness. This made my day.
Like a blinker.
Oh, my goodness. And he stays right in the line.
He stays perfectly in the
Yeah. Look. Oh, look at that, Jerry. Oh, my goodness. Jerry, he drives safe. Well, there ain't no driver, but the car drives.
Jerry's better than me.
Yeah, me too. And then everybody. Watch how good he turns. Right. Perfect. Sure.
All right, that's it.
Well, thank you very much. You did an excellent job. I can't believe this. What? He's cool.
मुझे बताया जाए ये बाबा कहाँ से पकड़ा है इन्होंने My father is 82. He would not have that reaction. तो इसकी इस वीडियो की जबरदस्त बात दोनों बाबे हैं.
No, yeah. So I think this is where we are heading. So I had a couple of more elements about well-being, but that's not the point. The point is that the world we're living in, all this is possible. So start making these things.